Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Surprise, surprise, surprise. Beethoven surprises us with a polyphonic texture at the start of the trio in the scherzo third movement of Symphony No. 5. That is surprising because the first half had only monophonic and homophonic texture, and they both were quarter note based, but while now suddenly he applies 8-note based melody that basically will determining the tempo of the inter movement. So when you are looking for the tempo how to start, you have to come here, and here is your answer. The big challenge is in this also that these 6-8 notes in one bar, they are equalized both articulation and dynamic wise. Which challenges the musicians superly, because earlier they didn't require so many notes. Now they play twice as much notes at the same time as they did in the previous session. So your main job as conductor will be not to bother them. So my suggestion is to use squared small gestures. The cueing is still directional. You are cueing the cello and the bass, and the imitative polyphony calling for a cue from you for the bassoon and the viola, then the second violin and first violin. And for phrasing, I suggest to keep the vertical phrasing idea, but the basic idea, like the pickup note here, it's already the so-called 2-to-1 ratio squared offbeat cueing, which means 2 goes down and 1 up, like this. 1, 2, pam, pam. Pum pa da di da di 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 pum pim pum pum pim pum pim pum pum. This is the main idea of the squared the gesture. So get out of the way, don't be an obstacle for the musicians. And Beethoven probably heard in his mind something like this. I will play a little bit from this excerpt for you. Repeat the main idea. So something like that, and let's see how the conductors are dealing with this the big challenge, because it's a challenge for everyone to find the right tempo and stay away from the musicians and don't bother them when they have to play so many notes. Here is one conductor that I would like to share with you. Let's observe how Bohm is handling this situation. I start a little bit earlier so we can listen to the connection to the trio. I think we can see very clearly how he uses the small gesture. What is interesting that he even slows down the tempo a little bit for the trio to control it even more. That basically it's not coming from Beethoven, it should be the same tempo, but he uses a very comfortable tempo, so the articulation is very clear. And when it needs to be the 2-to-1 ratio conducting, he even uses a semi kind of subdivision to make sure that they will stay together beautifully. Let me show you another conductor how he is managing the same excerpts, and don't be surprised because you might hear very interesting things. And here we are. Well, you can hear how important is the playability of the smallest rhythmical unit as definition to find the right tempo. And now we heard the possibility that is probably closer to a sport event than a musical performance. and the conductor also didn't apply any different kind of gestures. It's all the time beating the same. So I think the real tempo is probably in between these two that we just heard. Let's see another very interesting, important performance by Barenboim, and let me show you how he is doing. I show after the repeat because first time you couldn't see him at all. Well, it's again very instructive what he's doing because he's using way too big gestures and subdivisions everywhere. And you can notice that he's even getting behind of the tempo. The group is still keeping the tempo that is probably between the previous two tempos and very acceptable. But with the subdivisions and the extra beats he applies, he uses too much space that slows down the tempo, and this is why he's getting behind. Let's see another famous conductor seeing how he is managing the same sessions, and Leonard Bernstein is the next one that I would like to share with you. Here is his version. As you could hear and see, the tempo is almost the same as the previous recording's tempo was. And you could see the 2-to-1 ratio of beat cueing is very clear. And the majority of his beats are also very square, using small space, not to bother the musicians, but focusing on the articulation, the evenness of the 8 notes, both articulation-wise and tempo-wise, and not to bother the musicians with the very challenging performance. And here is Karajan also. I would like to show you his the approach to the same music that will be a little bit different, but here it is. I show the second issue after the repeat because first time you can't see him neither. You could notice that his gestures were very clear, down moving 2-to-1 ratio gestures. He was using small space not to bother the musicians, letting them focusing on articulation and dynamics. And he showed the phrasing for them, and he was still cueing them, turning to them. And you could notice that probably these last 3 recordings tempo was very close. They're all very good pianists, so probably they went to Beethoven and they got the tempo directly from him. So you see how challenging profession is conducting is. So my suggestion is to use the squared 2-to-1 ratio, 2 down, 1 up in the one pattern, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 the idea for the pickup preparation beat, and fill up the beats with the 6-8 notes evenly in your mind, and your hand will follow that in small space, and you won't bother the musicians when they have to work so very hard. It's a very lovely, challenging, and satisfying, exciting profession, and I hope that my Hungarian accent is not bothering you still. And enjoy music, love Beethoven such as I do, better every day, and I will see you next time. Have a great day and a great weekend.